Guess what? We don't have slides. We're talking, no slides, which hopefully will be quite entertaining at this point. But I do want to take a moment before I dive in with Rebeca from Forbes. And I want to thank Heather and Carrie and the team at H2K, because this is my second year here, not my seventh or fourth or whatever the joke is. But just like last year, I am leaving with I'm leaving smarter, more informed. I am leaving with concepts and action items that I know I can take to better support our publishing community that we support at Bombora. And I'm also leaving with a really deep sense of gratitude for being part of this community, and that is all because of what's happening at H2K. So thank you to the H2K team. But let's dive in, Rebeca. We're talking about storytelling today, and we have talked a lot about AI and the impact of AI, and at the end of the day, it comes down to storytelling, right? Being able to tell who your audience is, regardless of how big it is, right? You have to be able to tell what the quality of the audience and who you're reaching. So I really want to dig into that with you today, but before I do that, I want you to tell me a little bit about your journey at Forbes. And you've worn a lot of hats, a lot of diverse hats, so tell us about your career at Forbes and what you're doing today.
Yes, and I think because I have worn so many hats, it's given me the opportunity to be able to be nimble, to anticipate change and go with the flow, but also try to be at the forefront of trying to understand what success means. I've managed a QA team, so I understood how the websites worked. I've managed the programmatic and yield side of the business as well, so I understood the revenue enhancements that you get from the other side of direct sales, to that industry saying every single year there might be something that might disrupt the business. And so I think from that perspective, it really gave me an understanding of, okay, let's see what all the information is, let's assess and try to see what's the best for the business. And with the changing landscapes, we have pivoted to understanding where our audience is across digital and social, and so it made sense to have our revenue operations all under one umbrella, in understanding how to package and price social and digital, and then also from an operations understanding, how do we provide integrated packages for our brands and for our partners in the changing landscapes, and then also equally, and if not more importantly, how are we telling that audience story?
So you kind of touched on this a little bit in your answer, and I don't know how much more you want to share, but I know that you have made a very strategic decision to shift your team into storytellers. And I know that's a big investment in training and people. So what was the impetus for that? I mean, anything more you want to share there?
Yeah, I think just the overall changing landscapes. Forbes has been around for 100 plus years. So we've seen change, and we're not immune to change. We used to be a print company, and then we moved to .com. And then there was a disruption of mobile, and everybody was consuming content in mobile. We have the age of social media, so now Forbes audiences are across many different platforms at this point. And now with AI, we're trying to understand how we can integrate those packages in a seamless way. And so I created this need for understanding how we can tell audience stories in a holistic way. We started off with the products and ideation of how we're going to integrate things in a holistic way, and then we moved towards operationally how are we going to find success. And I flagged that as we're trying to sell integrated packages, it is inherently going to be more complex to deliver on those. But it's also more important to be able to tell a Forbes story. There are users across so many different platforms, and we have different audiences across different platforms. And the question becomes, how can we show a brand that is partnering with us a story of the audiences they want to target, but then also how can we tell them key understandings of different things that they might not know about the success of their campaigns, and trying to see that from a lens of digital, social, content, events.
So I think you just answered my next question, and that is the storytelling team. It's a pre-sales story. They're pre-sales storytellers to win the business. They're also post-sell. So your storytelling team really covers the entire client life cycle.
Yes, and it's important to help build that narrative across the full life cycle of the campaign. We go from a macro level, from a pre-sale perspective, in trying to understand who is your key audience and what platforms are we going to be able to provide the best recommendations of where that audience sits. From there, that's where the fun comes in, because once activation starts, that's when the data starts pulling in. And then we have touch points with the teams to understand where is the message resonating the most. Where is, number one, are we making good by reaching the audiences that you wanted to target on a pre-sale perspective? First, telling that story, because that's what the brand cares about.
At the macro level.
At the macro level.
Yeah.
And then during the campaign, we want to understand, yes, are we hitting it? But then what else can we tell? Are there additional insights that we can find, maybe audiences the brand didn't even think about was going to resonate well on their messaging, and how we can try to provide recommendations during the campaign for upsell opportunities. We don't go as robust in the mid-campaign, but we do try to find those stories in order to help continue the conversation and show the value of the partnership that we have with the brand. From a post-sale perspective, that's when we really go to the micro level. That's where we utilize the information that we were generating during the campaign. We want to take a look at, is there anything deeper that we want to dive into? And are there any additional snippets and pockets of audiences that they might not have thought about, which would be insightful in order for them to recommend for future activations. Now, some brands are going to be willing to want to change and evolve with you throughout the partnership. But a lot of the times we also want to just provide them with actionable insights so that they have for continued partnerships, because these are partnerships that we have with these brands for years, and we want to make sure that it's more than just the money that you're providing within the campaign, but that we're really truly providing value.
So I'm going to ask a self-promoting question, and I'm just going to throw that out there. I'm going to acknowledge it. I'm going to do it twice in this conversation. Here's my first one, too. So how important in this process to be a truly competent data storyteller is it to have first-party data enrichment providers? How important?
It's essential. First-party data enrichment is helpful for customer segmentation. It's also very helpful for providing robust audience targeting. In-market intent is something that we don't necessarily have. We do have a robust Forbes One first-party audience, but being able to enrich that and provide additional opportunities that we would not have had is essential. It helps win businesses, and it helps tell us a better story from a first-party perspective, because we all know third-party has a lot of different avenues that they can cut and slice audience targeting for. First-party has always had its limitations, so to enrich it and to be able to tell that full story in a privacy-centric way is very important.
So I want to talk about a specific example that you had with Citibank, and I really love this one. But before I do that, I'll frame it a little bit. So we are very fortunate at Bombora to work with a lot of publishers on helping them win business, helping them retain business with different brands. And one of the most common audience requests that we get is, lo and behold, we want to reach the C-suite, right? So Forbes is going to come to mind to brands that want to reach the C-suite. You reach them very, very well. But that can also be very frustrating, right? Because we know that when brands are making a buying decision, there is a full buying committee that is associated with making that purchase, and by targeting just the C-suite on Forbes, they're limiting themselves, and they're not truly influencing everybody that's involved in the decision that's going to be made in that campaign. And what I found particularly interesting about what you did with Citi and with others that we have seen, and I'd like for you to talk about it a little bit, is you tell the story in a way that makes them understand how different the people are that they're talking and influencing. So you use data to say, okay, city, so yes, we want to reach the C-suite, and the C-suite of the buyers that you're looking for today are looking at really macro strategic topics like OpenAI. But the business decision makers that are also part of the same buying committee for the product that you're selling, right? They are actually researching more micro operational topics like pricing automation. And so, one, if we're not reaching them, we're not reaching everybody involved in the campaign. But two, if we don't talk to them differently, we may not be able to influence them. It's brilliant. And I love how you do it. So how are you using these insights to convince advertisers to really broaden their targeting scope?
I think data is such a powerful tool to have, and when you talk to a brand through the data where things are performing, both within our publication and within campaigns, it tells a story that's unrefutable. From that perspective, Citi was a great example of a brand that wanted specifically to focus on C-suite. And they're not the only ones that come to Forbes that say, I want C-suite. And it is cut and dry, this is what I want. But that's the beauty of telling the story during the campaign, trying to do it before the campaign, and to also provide at the end of campaign as well, because we want to make sure that they have the information in front of them of not just the C-suite, but what else can we provide to you that's going to help in your decision making. We also try to broaden it for other buying committees within Citi as well, because maybe it's not for digital only, but if we have information to showcase on the social part of it as well, or on the content part of it as well, they can bring that information on a pre-sale perspective to the other departments that have that money, and then provide the information to help broaden the relationship.
So you're getting actually more budget and reaching the full buying committee.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
The goal is always going to be to try to say, how can we tell a story that is actionable, and that can help not just provide you exactly what you need, but also additional information to help maybe you think about things differently in a way you didn't think about.
Right.
And the Citi is a great example because they come in for C-suite, but look at all the other information that we can provide you about if you were to broaden to decision makers, if you were to broaden to business decision makers, and being able to show that through data, it helps provide a stronger relationship with the brand, and it helps provide easier conversations when we're talking in pre-sale.
So I know that many people in this room are facing, I think headwinds is an overused word. We describe it as like a hurricane force wind when it comes to traffic issues, right? But knowing that you've shifted to this data storytelling, how does it change the temperature of the conversation with brands when you're going in and they may have in front of them, like, this is what your traffic was last year and this is what it is this year? Does it change the temperature of those conversations to have this robust story about who your audience is?
I think the response to that is to focus on quality versus quantity. And as you mentioned before, people come to Forbes for C-suite audience, for the decision makers. Entrepreneurial success is what people come to Forbes to read. So it's being able to talk about the fact that the quality of our audience has not changed. And even as we're trying to broaden the scope of utilizing more platforms and going to every touch point that a Forbes reader can reach, that's why we're leaning into social media. That's why we're leaning into YouTube. We want to get to the content that these readers want to consume, and we want to get the audience stories across all of these platforms in order to tell that better story.
So, and I can't believe we're running out of time. Let's get the SAP story in.
Sure.
Because I love this one. So SAP is another one of the brands that you work with. And you were able to show SAP that interest grew by 22% at the businesses that they were targeting. So prior to the campaign, these businesses they were targeting, no real research around SAP. They partner with Forbes. You come in after and you go, surprise and delight. Look at what happened, right? These businesses, their research is growing, your awareness is growing with them. So if you don't mind sharing, how did that resonate with SAP? And how do your sellers feel being equipped with that kind of information about the power of your audience?
I think those are one of the easier stories to tell because the response is like, please tell me more.
Yeah.
I want to know who that audience is. I want to know how much you can dive into where that success is and how we were so successful. And it goes to the partnership with SAP. We have been longstanding partners for over a decade. And so being able to provide them new information that they've never seen before is really powerful. For the sales teams, they eat this up because it showcases and it provides great case studies to show the power of the brand and the power of the messaging for the brand as well. Mm-hmm. So the power of the Forbes brand is impactful to SAP through the messaging that they're providing. And being able to tell that story is just such an easy win for us. And it's amazing to see the collaboration that we continue to have with partners like that. And we're able to continue to have more refined relationships because of the data.
I love that. And I know we're out of time. I'm going to get my last self-serving, self-promoting question in. If anybody in the room is looking to, in your opinion, right, become a very competent audience storyteller, what are the must-have tools or mindset that they need to have? What's your advice?
I think one thing that has been spoken about a lot here is automation, really leaning into automation and understanding how you can find operational efficiencies and how you can help streamline that because there's a lot more complexities, but automation can really help if you lean into it. And also having a data provider that can actually help work with you and mold together to help tell that story. I've known Jamie for maybe a few months, but when I came to her and I told her about how we saw the business for 2026 and where I wanted us to grow and how we wanted to tell our audience story, she wanted to lean in and say, tell me more, how can we do it? And there's not a lot of data partners that can provide the type of services that Bombora can. A lot of them say, that's not in my roadmap, we'll talk about it, we can talk about it next quarter. But Jamie comes in trying to find solutions and trying to see how we can better partner together. So I really do appreciate that.
Thank you, and I didn't know you were going to say that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate it.